Okay, here we go. Well then, officially, hello and a very warm welcome everyone to this Voices from the Ground event. We are actually very, very excited to have you all here, and also even more excited to have the opportunity to learn more about the Alliance-funded project, a transnational African Zoonosis education campaign. My name is Masha. I'm a junior at the Secretariat of the Alliance, and I have my colleague Anne-Christine here with me, and both of us are taking care of this event. Before we start, I will give some technical notes. So you can use the chat, feel free to do so. You can also post your questions there. We will collect the questions during the presentation, and then they will be answered at the end for a Q&A. But also you can just wait until the end of the presentation and then raise your hand, for example, and then speak up. But yeah, as long as we have the presentation going on, please keep your microphone muted. And yeah, we'll wait until the end. So then let's start. As the main speaker, I would like to introduce Dr. Dauda Onawola, who is currently the project veterinarian and Zoonosis education campaign manager at Pandrillus, Nigeria. And he has diverse experience that goes from livestock development to public health and wildlife conservation and to information technology. So a really broad experience. And he's also a long-time advocate of the One Health approach, especially in the Global South. But we have also a few more speakers that will be introduced then later by Dauda, and also why we will hear so many different voices, and also how the 4 different countries are connected is something that you will find out hopefully during the presentation. I will assure that. So without further ado, I will hand over to Dauda, and then I wish you a lot of learning and a lot of fun.
All right, thank you very much, Masha. I hope I am audible enough.
Yes, that's perfect.
All right, thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining from. Welcome to this episode of Voices from the Ground. Today, we'll be discussing the Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign, which is currently being undertaken by 4 wildlife sanctuaries in 4 different African countries. And like Masha rightly said, my name is Dauda Onawola, and I am the project veterinarian as well as the Zoonosis Education Campaign Manager for Pandrillus, Nigeria. Next slide, please. Next slide. Masha, can you move to the next slide?
Yeah, it should be now the third one, the third slide.
Yes, that's already my part. Yes.
No, just go back because the introduction is not finished. I think Dauda cannot see it.
I'm sorry. So this is the second slide that we've seen now.
Yes, the second slide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So I would, to start with, I would give an insight into what we'd expect from this discussion. And as per the outline, we're going to discuss the project idea. What is the reason behind this project? Why did we think it's important for us to undertake this project? And in the places we chose to undertake them, then we'll proceed to discuss the approach, what we started doing, what we are presently doing, what we intend to do before we conclude the project. As you are all aware, as it was included in the information that was shared, the invitation that was shared, this project has been going on for 12 months. And of course, there has been a lot of things happening. So in the approach section, we'll be discussing all of that. Then in the course of 12 months, of course, we must have had challenges. We'll discuss the very important ones and how we are coping with that. We'll be discussing the ones that have induced significant changes in our mode of operation for the campaign. And lastly, we will just give a brief narration about where we are now and the feedback we've been getting from people in these countries where these campaigns have been held. So for the project idea, my colleague, Sandra Atla, will take us through that one. And Masha, you can proceed to the next slide while Sandra takes over from me.
Yeah, thanks, Dauda. Well, the idea for the Transnational African Zoonosis Education Campaign came up because as a member of the Health Alliance, just the first bullet point, we know that the theory and practice are often isolated and scientific findings do not necessarily reach local people in their daily life. Can continue this, yes, exactly, thanks. And our idea was to use existing educational programs instead of creating new ones. And for the project, we chose the 4 rescue centers, as all 4 consortium partners were already running awareness campaigns. And the focus of those awareness campaigns was so far mainly on conservation problems raising from bushmeat poaching. And when we presented our idea to the local partners, they were enthusiastic as they saw the zoonosis aspect as a perfect addition to their existing education programs, as it is of high relevance for their target groups. That was the idea behind it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Sandra. That was quite brief, and I hope that gave you a deep insight into what we are doing. We try as much as we can to simplify it because there's no point making it too complex for you. So I will proceed by giving an explanation on the approach, the things, how we started, and how we are presently taking on the campaign. So the first step that we took forward in this campaign was to create a scientific background for the campaign that is about to happen. So by that, I mean putting together a profile for each of the countries that will be partaking in the campaign, stating the kind of wild animals that can be found in these countries, the kind of diseases that these wild animals are potentially reservoirs of, and the diseases that are endemic in those areas. So we'll put together all of these scientific evidences for us taking on this campaign and informing people about the risks associated with activities such as bushmeat consumption, hunting, keeping wildlife as pets, and also deforestation. So as you would understand, the transmission of zoonotic diseases from wild animals to human beings is not a unilateral interaction. It is as a result of multiple factors. So we try to put all of this together in the scientific background that we are creating for the campaign. Then after this is done, we proceeded to the training of trainers. Now, in the sanctuaries that are undertaking the campaigns, there are educational programs already in place at these sanctuaries, right? And there are people that undertake these, like these are the staff, sometimes the staff, some of the sanctuaries have like staff dedicated to education. So we had to retrain them because this is maybe not a new thing, but a unique thing that is coming in to augment the existing educational program that they have. So all sanctuaries are to train these trainers. And the trainers are not just staff members or educators at these sanctuaries, they are also ambassadors or third parties that are interested in zoonosis prevention. So, for example, in Nigeria, we had ambassadors coming in as multiplicators, and during the training of trainers phase of this campaign, we brought everybody on board and we explained to them the idea behind this campaign, and we try to make them understand the scientific background for the campaign. That made things a lot easier, which means we have a backlog of people that are very interested that will serve as the baseline for spreading the campaign. Then we proceeded after the training of trainers. During the training of trainers, there were feedback from some of the trainers based on their experience so far before the campaign and how they think we can proceed with the campaign. So we did an appraisal of the inputs from the training of trainers session, and we modified the messaging and the approach and then integrated it into the existing educational programs that these sanctuaries have. And subsequently, we proceeded with the dissemination. So this third phase was very critical. It was the phase where we had the transition from the science and the protocol into real life campaign. So the third phase was quite interesting. It was the phase where we had to produce materials. It was the phase where we had to, modify existing educational programs, which sometimes may not be easy. And it was the phase where we had to actually go all out in the first instance to really train people and also to inform them about zoonotic risks associated with our interactions with wildlife. So the focus per country depends on the kind of activities that are prevalent in that area that can aid the transmission of zoonotic disease. What I mean by that is, for some countries, they have species that are used in international wildlife trade. So for that particular country or area, the focus of the messaging will be on the negative impact of wildlife trade, right? And for example, there, especially in indigenous communities, there are people that hunt and kill wild animal for bush meat. They consume some and they take some to urbanized areas for sales. We try to also reach those kind of places and inform them about the risks associated with these activities they are carrying out. One very important thing at this third phase is we were looking at disrupting the value chain of wild animals, whether as it has to do with the trade or consumption or hunting, whatever value chain has been established with transfer wild animals from their wild habitats to human habitats. We try to discourage it. So that was the focus of our messaging. I will try to, as much as possible at this third phase, to make sure we stuck to the messaging and we did not derail. So after a while of starting the campaign, we had experiences from the field. We had the trainers and the sanctuaries. They've gone out at that phase. They've gone all out with the messaging, and their feedback, their things that work and things that did not work the way they were expected. So during our monthly meetings, we have a monthly meeting on the program. So we try as much as we can to synergize our efforts. By that, I mean we share experience of what we are encountering on the field or with a particular type of approach. Is if a sanctuary is doing radio program, if a sanctuary is doing school outreach, they come to give a narration of what they have done that worked perfectly, so that other sanctuaries can also borrow these ideas and try to use it in their subsequent activities. So we tried as much as we can to synchronize the activities by synergizing our efforts rather than just existing as individual countries undertaking the campaign. So we tried to put up a united front. And as we understand, this will also help, the acceptability of our messaging, especially in rural places. If you understand, okay, this is going on elsewhere, then you would appreciate the fact that, okay, you are not alone in this, and definitely there are other people involved. And, if you're trying to induce behavioral change, you try to appeal to people's sense of appreciation and sense of belonging as well. So by, coming together and making our subject understand the fact that this is not just taking place here, and there are other sanctuaries in other countries that are undertaking it, we try to push forward the agenda of belonging, that okay, if you stop these activities, it won't be only you, somebody else somewhere is also stopping. So that means you are part of a larger movement. So we try to synergize our efforts and try to unify how we approach the campaign. So the last thing that we are doing, because we are currently doing, is every time we meet, we try to analyze the approach in each sanctuary and collectively. Okay, if you're doing social media campaign, for example, here, is it working or is it not working? What exactly can we do to make it work better? And if you're doing school outreach, is it working? Is it not? What exactly can you do? What are the things you're doing? So we try to analyze how we reach out and try to deduce logically what are the things that are working and not. So far, for certain countries, as I would narrate in the challenge section, the radio program, for example, is a very good tool to use to reach people, but that may not be the case for everyone. other country. For example, in Nigeria, by estimate, we've reached around 6 million people by radio and over 20,000 people on social media, and other sanctuaries that take huge number of visitors per month. They've reached more than 8,000 people so far. So we try to analyze these approaches, give an objective way of evaluating what the approach has been yielding and how we can proceed to make it better or to change things. So these 5 steps are the steps we've taken so far and that we're currently taking until the end of the program to make sure it is a success and to make sure the message is being passed adequately and we can contribute significantly to the behavioral change that we all look forward to in the interaction between humans and wildlife specifically. Next slide. Masha, are you on the next slide?
Yeah, I am.
On the next slide.
All right.
Yeah.
So now, after 12 months of running this campaign, there are challenges, but there are important challenges that have induced changes in our modus operandi. By that, I mean there are feedback and questions, and there are situations that have helped our campaign, and there are situations that have come against it. And there are ways in which we have responded and adapted. And this is the very, very interesting part, because I'm sure for some of us that run similar campaigns or something very close in our countries, in our workplaces, we will reckon with some of these challenges, but of course, maybe not. But in case we are going to encounter it, this is something we can learn a lot from. So I will not be presenting this section alone. All the sanctuaries involved will be coming, and this is the reason why I love this part. It's very sweet. So just to give a brief insight into what we'll be expecting in the challenges and site section, which I'm very, very excited about. The first challenge will be addressed by Bayan Borbor of Libasa in Liberia. So the first challenge is speaking to the question, the feedback that we get mostly, almost all the sanctuaries actually got this feedback that people have always eaten bushmeat. So why should we stop now? Yeah, I will not give a response to that. I will allow Bayan Borbor to do justice to that in a short while. Then the second challenge is, how do we modify the messaging to meet up with information dissemination for each age group or people of different levels of education? Of course, it can be the same thing when you are reaching out. You have to be specific as you can be in your approach to reaching out to children, school children, or market women, or an association of elites, or university students. So how exactly did we manage to modify the messaging for each target group? Wilson Ate from Limbe Wildlife Center will be doing justice to that in a short bit. And then the third one, very interesting challenge, is the situation in each sanctuary and the countries where the sanctuaries are located, and the incidences of whether diseases or socio-economic situations or political situations. How have these factors helped or tried to hinder the campaign? Well, that is a very interesting part. Wilson Chinda from Game Rangers International Zambia will be taking on that. And lastly, this is a challenge, is very specific challenge for Nigeria. We are approaching 250 million people. Estimates by World Fact Books is we are 230 million people in Nigeria. And as we may have known, Nigeria has a diverse population in terms of language, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of cultural beliefs. And how did we manage to put up with this, and how are we coping with this, and what are the things we intend to do to proceed to cope with this and to reach this vast population that is diverse in almost every demographic parameter. That will be taken by me, but before then, I would like to invite Bayan Borbo from the BASA to proceed and take on the first challenge, which is on the feedback of people who have always eaten bushmeat. Why should we stop now? Bayan, please unmute yourself and take the next 5 minutes to give us a briefing on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for having me on this presentation. Once again, I'm Guillaume Bobo, manager of the Libasa Wildlife Sanctuary. So, for generations, Liberians have eaten bushmeat, and it is deeply ingrained into our culture. When we start to talk about not eating it because of zoonotic diseases, we come across the question, we have always eaten bushmeat. Why should we bother now? One of the ways we tackle this question is to try to break the culture by educating young children of Liberia, as they are the future generation, and being educated and knowledgeable about zoonotic diseases and One Health. We explain to Liberians that the outbreak of zoonotic disease are increasing since 2014, and the government recognizes this and bans the hunting, selling, or killing of bushmeat since 2014. Since then, we have had Ebola that killed nearly half of the people that caught it, monkeypox, Lassa fever, and COVID-19. Can you go to the next slide, please?
It's the next slide now. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. As the ban is imposed for the well-being of the country, the government, as the ban is imposed for the well-being of the country, the environment and the people, traders have their bushmeat confiscated and are going to alternatives such as fish or snails that are more sustainable and legal. We also explain that in Liberia, more people are moving from villages to towns and cities. We continue to take down our forests for charcoal and wool, and continue to kill and exploit wildlife, and all of these increase the livelihood of zoonotic diseases occurring in our country. We also promote the One Health principle to Liberians who are very culturally. Sorry, we also promote the One Health principle to Liberians who are very culturally community oriented, and explain to them that ensuring the One Health of people, animals, and the environment, they will ensure the One Health of the country. So this is where we are when we come to addressing this identical question. Thank you, Dauda. You can take over.
All right. Thank you so much. That is so much appreciated. Moving on to the next. Wilson Ati of Limbo Wildlife Center, please step up to make your presentation. 4 to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ate Wilson from the Limbe Wildlife Center. Thank you for having me on this presentation. I'll be taking on how our messages differ for different age groups and level of education. It is significant that when we go to an area, we need to research to find out the kind of language we use there. So with the primary, we use a simple English, picture posters, and test pre and post tests to find out if the messages we are passing to them is effective or if they learn something. Sometimes we go to certain schools that they don't know anything concerning zoonosis. We need to break everything down for them to understand very well. From when we give the pre-test, we discover that they know nothing about zoonosis. Then after teaching, we give back the post-test to find out. And this goes between a period of 1 month, and after teaching, then we evaluate. Or 3 weeks, we evaluate. Or 2 weeks, we evaluate to find out if they are following up. Then when we go to secondary school, we step up a little bit. Instead of only showing posters, we take on a simple English and we show diagrams. And we also give the pre and post test. And sometimes we allow them with open and closed questions so that we could be able to find out from the secondary school guys if they have learned something better. And we also allow them to express themselves. From there, with the open questions, we know that they have actually learned something. If they are capable of writing down sometimes names of certain diseases like monkeypox, rabies, Ebola, or the like, that will help us to know that at least they have learned something and they can remember something. In our absence, they'll be able to educate others and tell stories about us, about the lessons to their family. Next slide, please. So when we go to the general community, we also speak in Pidgin English, because some parents do not understand English very well or French. So we go with Pidgin English that is understood by almost everybody in our neighborhood. And we show posters and diagrams. We have a lot of posters donated by the Cameroon government under the Ministry of Public Health, and we are using it, which is tying with our message, One Health. We also issue awareness posters to community. Some people like to hang them in their homes. So we give them and they take this and they ask a lot of questions. In each community, we first of all present the pre-test. After the pre-test, we give the lessons, show posters, explain the way the posters are written. If there are picture posters, like somebody with monkeypox will be able to explain how it is manifested in you, how you can take to know that you are suffering from this disease, and a way to prevent them by hand washing, using soap, staying away from wild animals, not eating bush meat. Bush meat is dangerous for our health. We should make sure we stay away from it. And we should not keep wild animals at home, making sure all of these messages are passed on to them before we can now give a post-test to find out if they follow it. So the other community groups, we speak in English, like with more scientific language. And sometimes if we organize a workshop and we are addressing nurses or doctors or teachers, we'll speak in English for them to be able to understand. And from there, we can bring in the terminologies that are commonly used under health, which is good. And also we start by presenting the post for the pre-test. For each thing or for each level that we go, we present a pre-test and we end up with a post-test after the lesson. So that makes us to know if we have done something in the community. So it is working very well. We also show posters, picture posters, like most of the time you can see us in the community. At the last workshop, you could see that they ask us a lot of questions. And sometimes we leave an open discussion with the community where they ask questions and we provide answers, and some of them participate by even testifying the manifestation of rat at home or the effect of rat at home. And some of them ask a lot of questions to us. Why have we not been doing this since and we are doing it now? You've already answered that, which is very important. Thank you very much. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you so much, Wilson. Wilson Chinda from GRI, can you please take over?
Thank you very much, Dauda. So as GRI, through this campaign with our alliance partners, we look at the opportunities and threats amidst the current health crises that our countries are going through. So looking at the different health challenges that we've all faced during this campaign, when you talk of monkeypox, Ebola, anthrax, and cholera, in Zambia specifically, we have first a challenging period since the cholera outbreak began in Zambia, and we've lost quite a number of people. So this has posed indeed so many threats to our campaign. And the first threat that this came with was the closure of schools. So schools starting from primary schools until university were closed so that they can contain the spread of the cholera disease. And so with this closure, we've had a challenge because we are unable to reach out to our conservation clubs and also to university groups that we usually talk to, educating them on zoonotic diseases. So this has really impacted us negatively because we are unable to get to the target and achieve our goal in the zoonosis awareness campaign. So the second one is a ban of public events and public gatherings. So from the time these diseases came into Zambia, the government restricted the number of people that can be in one group at a particular time, making it difficult for us to send through our messages to communities, deliver our messages through sports activities and other government activities. Then one of the major threats that we've found during this period is the shift in media messaging from direct contact with wildlife and domestic animals and the consumption of meat to sanitation. So back then, the messages in the media were discouraging direct contact and consumption of meat from unknown sources. But now it is a different case as we are much more looking on the sanitation aspect, the drinking of clean water, sweeping of the compounds and surroundings. So this has really driven the shift away from the direct contact of wildlife and consumption of meat, which we are focusing on as the zoonosis awareness campaign is going on. Then the second one is a ban of street markets. So we've had an advantage in street markets because that's where we find a lot of people. So through our community outreach program, we've been going out in these markets, spreading the words on zoonosis diseases. But then with the ban of these markets, we are unable to do that, making it difficult for the campaign to really reach its intended goals. Then the last one is fear of contracting cholera disease. So this has also impacted and threatened our campaign as it has brought in a negative aspect in people such that they are afraid to welcome us as we try to approach the door-to-door aspect. They're afraid to welcome us because they think we might spread the disease to their homes. So this has really broken the chain of messages that we've been sending as we are unable to do that anymore. Next slide, please. However, these diseases have not really come with the whole full negativity because we've been able to salvage opportunities from the challenges that we faced. And much of the opportunities that we've had is increased media coverage. So we say increased media coverage because during the same period before the cholera outbreak came in, we had the anthrax disease in Zambia, and that really swerved the media. We were on top of the game. We were sending out messages on a wider space as every media organization was focusing on anthrax, making it much more easy for our messages on these zoonotic diseases to get out to the furthest communities and the peoples that we are unable to reach with the community outreach. Then this also brought in a swathe of partnerships from different non-governmental organizations and also government organizations, such that we had to join in forces to fight the anthrax outbreak. And this also brought in a lot of media coordination, as we had partnerships on radio with different organizations. The focus was fully on zoonotic diseases and how we can prevent these diseases from spreading across. Then secondly, we had a positive behavior change in many people. As people were getting afraid to contract the anthrax disease, they changed the way they had to behave in terms of bushmeat consumption and also acquiring meat for consumption, such that they have stopped buying from unknown sources and going to trusted sources. This to us is a plus, as we know that buying meat from well-known sources is healthy, and also that meat is tested before it can be given out to the public. Then the second one is, the fourth one is the shrinking markets to illegal bushmeat. So with the coming of anthrax and the cholera disease, so to say, there has been a shrink in illegal bushmeat markets. And this is a plus because poachers are unable to sell their products as people are shifting their focus from buying meat products from unknown sources to government recommended sources. So these has cut down the chain of poaching, and also it has promoted good health practices in terms of consumption of meat and other bushmeat products. Then the other one is understanding the importance of drinking safe water while avoiding the use of same water sources with domestic animals and wild animals. Back then, before the anthrax disease came in, people never used to worry much about where they get their water. But now people are careful on where they get their water, as they are able to make that distinction in between the drinking water and the water they use for washing, to avoid going to the streams and other sources that are not protected away from the reach of animals. Then the final and last one is the fear of buying meat from unknown sources. So as we all know, meat in other ways is the major spreader of the zoonotic diseases. And this fear that people have now is a plus to us, as when we go out there, we tell them the effects of buying meat products from unknown sources. And in turn, people respond as they do not want to contract any diseases from these unknown sources where they get the meat. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Wilson Chinder. Next slide, please.
It is already yours. Pandrillus Nigeria is that one.
All right. Yeah, so as I started to say earlier on, Nigeria has a very big population of greater than 230 million people. And yeah, with wide diversity in language and ethnicity. So how do we try to overcome that challenge? So next slide.
Yes.
All right. So the first thing we did was, we can be everywhere and we can speak 500 languages. So what we did was to establish a network of ambassadors in all the geopolitical zones in the country and almost all the states. So we succeeded to have 46 ambassadors in 21 out of the 36 states in Nigeria. And our ambassadors are mostly youths that are passionate about One Health and reasonably influential in their states and their surroundings. So most of the ambassadors stay in peri-urban areas, which means they are the interface between rural population and the urban population. So it's easy for them to actually diffuse the message to both ends. And yeah, on this slide, you're seeing the distribution of our ambassadors across the country. And next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So another thing we did was to run a radio program, but in pidgin language instead of using the normal English language, because that is spoken by elites in the country. However, pidgin English, the Nigerian pidgin English, is spoken by almost everybody in all the 36 states of the country. So it's the language of even the poor, regardless of your education status, you speak at least Pidgin English. That is not to say that everybody in the country speaks it, but we can say that most, if not all, people understand Pidgin English. So our radio program was run in Cross River State in Calabar, which is a state in the south region of the country. But we took advantage of media to host it on a Spotify channel, then broadcast it to other states through social media. So this is like a relay from the original, as you can see on the slide, from the original broadcast in Cross River State to Spotify, and we share it on social media to everybody. Well, podcasts don't have a huge audience base here, but we have a repository of all these radio talks, and if anybody wants to listen, they can always be there. So what we now do is we try from time to time to promote the radio talks so that people go to our podcast channel and they can always access the radio programs that have been held, and they can easily understand because the language used was Pidgin English that they mostly speak normally. So next slide. Okay, so then going by the fact that the majority of the Nigerian population is youthful, about 60% of the Nigerian population are between 18 and 35. That is not a verified figure, but so we and youths are known for intensive use of social media in this era. So we try to take advantage of the social media for disseminating the message. So we made posts still in Pidgin English, but we translate to the normal English so that elites can also reckon with the message and take it. For the most part, for our social media campaign, the elites are actually the audience because we're trying to discourage the demand for bushmeat and wildlife products on social media. So it's important for us to have it in a language that the elites can understand. And if there's no demand for these items, the supply is also going to be hindered. By implication, the hunters and whoever is involved in killing and sourcing this wildlife will also be discouraged to do it, since there will be no market incentive for it. So that was the aim of our social media campaign. And lastly, next slide.
Yes.
So to answer these questions on the screen of how are the activities being received by the target groups? Well, there have been, based on the opportunities that we've had so far of incidences of, zoonotic diseases, for example, we've since stated some of the incidences in his country that either in Nigeria as well, there was anthrax that broke out, and currently we are facing a potential Lassa fever outbreak. So the message is inducing question, at the very least, in many people that are receiving it, that okay, even if they don't believe it, but with the evidences and with outbreaks that are happening here and there, they are beginning to question their belief about consumption of bushmeat, which is a good way to start. And to answer the question of is the team motivated? Yes, all teams across board are really motivated because we seem to be making progress. However, we should all understand that there needs to be a persistent dissemination of information, accurate information about zoonotic diseases and zoonotic spillover, such that the behavioral change that will take a long time will be aided by the information we are passing. So our success is visible, but I'd say yes. We hope and we'll work as much as we can to succeed at this. But from all indications, we're most likely going to succeed in passing the message at the very least. Inducing behavioral change, of course, that will need some more intensive approach and activities. But yeah, for this particular campaign, success is visible. And yeah, there's a little note on the screen from Limbe Wildlife Center. This is comments from one of the visitors at the Wildlife Sanctuary. And this was what they had to say about the campaign. Thank you very much. We'll be taking questions now.
Well then, yeah, thank you very much for really this comprehensive insight into your work and all the different projects and how you connect, and also for sharing the various challenges you've faced and also how you approach them. So we have now time for Q&A, and I will hand over to Anne-Christine for that.
Yes, thank you, Masha. Thank you to all the speakers for your presentation. Very insightful. Now we have time for questions, and I would like to invite everyone to raise their hand and pose the questions directly. Unmute yourself. Otherwise, you can also, of course, always use the chat. I'm not sure if maybe someone would like to start and already pose a question. Alice, go for it.
Thank you, and hi, nice to meet you. My name is Alice. Thank you so much to both of you for the very interesting and amazing presentation. It was very neatly done. Lots of information. I was most interested in, I think, Dauda, you mentioned in the beginning that you're recurrently analyzing the approaches that you're taking. And what I really like is like constantly reevaluating what works and what doesn't. And I was just interested in based on what you would do this analysis, and if you have some examples of what you learned, what doesn't work so well, and what works extremely well. But I think I'm usually most interested in things that don't work well and why, to learn from them. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So as I have said at the beginning of the presentation, there are 4 different countries, and sometimes something works perfectly in a country and doesn't work in other countries. Some things are needed in a country and it's not needed in another country. So we try to integrate whatever lessons and experience we are sharing into the realities on ground. So this is a real life situation. So we, for example, the radio talk, it works perfectly in Pidgin in my country. It's most likely going to be the same thing in Zambia, but maybe not in Cameroon, because part of the country speak French, but part of the country speak English. So maybe if they need to have a radio program, there has to be translation into French. I don't need that in my country because I have one language that almost everybody speaks. So our evaluation is more experiential than being hell-bent on a particular direction. So if you get an idea from someone and based on the reality on ground, if it's going to work fine, then you try it. So that is how we've been trying to, modify the approaches such that it fits perfectly into each sanctuary's approach to the campaign. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a question in the chat by Adrian Ardeline. Feel free to unmute yourself and post your question. Otherwise, I can also read it out. Okay, I can just read it out. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. What is the daily consumption of bushmeat per person? Are there any statistics or indications that you can maybe give concerning the amount and the consumption of bushmeat in your countries?
For Nigeria, no, I can't. We don't have information about the quantity of bushmeat consumed per person, because for the most part, you only know when they are brought to the market and when the elites purchase it from them. And you don't know what has happened in this rural community. So we don't have enough information to say categorically that, okay, we have so kilogram of bushmeat being consumed per person on a daily basis. The information wouldn't really be accurate enough because you can't have enough data to make that evaluation.
Okay, thank you. And then we also have follow-up questions on this. Also in the context of religion, what types of religion exist in your countries, and maybe also have you kind of integrated religious aspects into your education campaigns? And then also, have you involved veterinarians and hunters in your project? And then also relating back to the question on religion, also Alice asked if there would be an option to involve religious leaders in behavioral change and education campaigns. So maybe you can give a compact answer to that, or I mean, elaborate, but of course, different aspects.
Yes, for the religion question, we try as much as we can to give considerations for religion. In Nigeria, there is a dichotomy in religious belief when it comes to wildlife consumption. A huge part of the Muslim population in Nigeria believe that it is wrong to consume bushmeat. We consulted some clerics, and they said that while it is not so in other religions, so that is a consideration we are putting. And the involvement of religious leaders, yes, when possible, we do that. But religious affairs, they are at the moment globally they are seemingly volatile, and we tend to be as careful as we can when trying to incorporate this into our religious teachings. And for the involvement of veterinarians, I am a vet myself. Though for this particular question, I'll allow somebody else, if whether Wilson from Limbe or Wilson from GRI or Barbara has something to say about it. Of course, they can have a go. But in Nigeria, everybody has a role to play, not just veterinarians. We are not talking about diseases, don't know profession, they don't know religion, they don't know the diseases don't recognize the demographic that you come from. So it's everybody's role to help us promote the message, right? So vets can also, of course, they can come on board and they are already involved, but then I don't think it's the duty of a particular profession alone to undertake this. We're talking about One Health here. Everybody has a role to play. That will be my response to that. Limbe Wildlife Center, your hand is up.
Yeah, it is very important that when we are passing the message, it should go across the whole country in different aspects. Region per se, we don't too much involve, but we involve the leaders who can be able to pass on the message to their various congregations, to their Christians or to their Muslim faithful, because they believe in them than when you are just coming in to give a message and go. Zoonosis is real, and it is on the wild animals that people are consuming. So if they stand a good chance to tell people that, please, zoonosis is real, we should not consume bush meat, everybody in their churches will understand them than just taking from us, because they believe we are expert in the field, telling people to protect wildlife. So when we involve these religious leaders and everybody, veterinarians, doctors, and all people of work, it will go across to help achieve our mission.
Excellent. Thank you, Wilson.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also the beauty of a One Health approach to involve people across different sectors. I'm not sure if maybe someone else would also like to share their experiences regarding these questions, or if there's maybe more questions. Yeah, Wilson?
Yes, so in Zambia, I'll start with how do you involve veterinarians and hunters? So we take a holistic approach, and all partners are welcome to come on board, and we engage different veterinarians and also the Ministry of Tourism to come on board and just try to do this as a whole complete unit and a concerted effort by almost all the players that are involved in tourism and wildlife. Then we are in the pipeline of reaching out to churches, as we believe that churches are very influential here in Zambia. And so we have already started the approach with the messaging that Noah was the first ranger, and we all have a responsibility to protect and conserve wildlife. So that's the approach that we are taking here in Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you. Just maybe as a little follow-up question on this, are they or have you encountered any big challenges in involving a certain group that you would have liked to involved earlier and it was challenging to maybe reach out to them or to get them on board? Do you have any experiences with that as well?
Well, if you'd like me to take a go on that. Yes. In Nigeria, there has been a situation in which it was a group of hunter, and then reaching out to them, they were a little bit aggressive with, refusing the message. But after a long talk and inviting someone that speaks their language to let them understand we are not trying to impose any, forceful action here. We're trying to pass a message and make them understand, okay, this they do have some impact, negative impact in their life. We're able to diffuse the situation. But in reaching out to certain groups like hunters and people in rural places, the advice from my experience in Nigeria would be that you involve heavy as possible local authorities and mediators rather than wanting to take on the messaging yourself. So that was the biggest lesson from that particular outreach for me. If other sanctuaries have such experience, they can come on, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm not sure if maybe someone else still has a question, then I would just invite to unmute. Or Wilson, you would also like to say something still? Then go for it.
Yeah, in order to reduce conflict or difficulties in the field, what we do, we pre-visit the leaders of each community and introduce our program to him or her, and they'll be able to make announcement before our lessons. So that makes it easier for us. So if everybody can maybe try to adopt that in the community, it will be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure if, just raise your hand or unmute yourself if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I'm not sure if maybe you can give a little outlook on maybe what are like further steps or next steps still, how you like if you're gonna like what are you gonna do with the results now? How are you gonna maybe use the education campaign results? Otherwise, we have one more question as well in the chat of what kind of alternatives to animal meat exist in your countries, and is it affordable for an average income family? Maybe we can take on that question.
The last question again, what type of alternatives to animal meat?
Yeah, what kind of alternatives to animal meat exist in your countries? And is it affordable for an average income family?
So in Nigeria specifically, if you're trying to, switch over totally to non-animal source protein, it may not be possible for you to actually induce questions or have success in the short term with this kind of campaign. So what we do is instead of, promoting non-animal protein, we try to promote protein from animal sources that are not wildlife, from chicken, for example, beef, fish. And so we try to give alternatives to wild animal meats, like alternatives to bush meat, rather than go for alternatives to animal protein entirely. The animal protein on its own, there are lots of peculiarities to it that especially regarding affordability and availability. So we are not trying to even look in that direction at the moment, just to make sure, okay, we are kind of, I don't know the technical term to use here. We don't jump from A to B. We like go progressively to the point where we can now talk about, okay, no more animal protein, if that is going to be possible. But at the moment, we're not offering alternatives to animal protein. We're offering alternatives to bushmeat in our messaging.
Okay, thank you. All right, maybe with this, we can slowly close the session. So thank you very much for your presentation. And it was lovely to have you here and to listen to what you have been doing. Thank you so much. If there's any further questions that you might have, you can maybe send an email to the Secretariat and check out our website as well, and then we can take care of it. So yeah, we have another event upcoming in March where we're gonna send out invitations soon, so also keep posted for that one. But for now, I would just like to thank all our speakers and also Dauda for the moderation. I think we all have learned something and we greatly enjoyed this. So thank you very much. And then I hope to see you soon. And enjoy the rest of your day or morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.